Okay, good morning. My name is Rick Sundahl. I'm with Great Wolf Systems, and what we're going to talk about today is beyond Magento. And I appreciate you taking the time out today out of your busy schedule to come and listen. We are trying something, this is the second time we've done this, where we're actually trying to create a webinar that doesn't take up a whole bunch of time. The objective is to be done by 9:30. We're going to be done in a half an hour. And that means we're going to be flying through a lot of stuff, which also means at the end I will have time for questions and answers, and if we need to take some of them offline, we can do that as well. But let's go ahead and get started. A little introduction. Great Wolf Systems has been in business for over a quarter of a century. We've been in business for over 25 years. We have changed a lot of things. I'm going to get a little bit of history on this topic of where we've come from, but also my background is I have come from the distribution industry. My dad was an auto parts distributor, and I have been involved with the distribution world for quite a while. Now we've got some people on board with both P21 and SX/CSD, and so we've been involved with those industries for quite a while now. That is our focus, is on those ERP backends, is the CSD SX world and the P21. We're actually moving into Acumatica here shortly, and we're going to start moving into some of the other ERPs, but they're all going to be distribution-based. Again, because I'm trying to get through this fairly quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the introduction because you probably don't want to hear that, but I do want to talk about what we're going to go over today. We're going to do a quick overview of Magento. Now, I'm assuming a lot of you have already known what Magento is. You probably wouldn't be on this webinar if you didn't know what Magento was. But I want to talk a little bit about what is Magento and then talk about beyond Magento. I'm not going to do a lot of demos of plain Jane vanilla Magento. That's not the purpose of today. We could spend hours talking about how Magento works. But what I want to do focus on is the extensions, the modules, and then our solution called Altitude of how we've taken Magento and extended beyond that, and as well as other third parties have. So the whole purpose of today is to talk about not what is Magento, not sell you on Magento, but talk about how do you take it beyond where it is from an off-the-shelf solution to an actual solution that you can actually implement yourself. All right, with that being said, let's do a quick Magento overview. If you're familiar with Gartner, you may be familiar with their Magic Quadrant, and they have a Magic Quadrant for the e-commerce solutions. And if you look on this, you're going to see in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see Magento up there. And that's really meant to be Magento Commerce Edition. We're going to talk about the editions here just in a minute. But you've got Oracle, SAP. If you'll notice, I don't even see Infor on here. You do see things like Unilog that you may have heard of. They're going to be at TUG, which, oh, by the way, we're going to be at TUG in a couple weeks. They'll probably be there. You've probably heard of Shopify. So you can see where Gartner has put Magento on this. Again, focusing on the Commerce Edition. If you are familiar with Forrester, Forrester has their way. Very similar concept as the upper right-hand quadrant is where you want to be, but they've added a little extra element to it. Is the size of the circle is the size of the market presence. And you can see on here, here's Magento Commerce again. You've probably heard of Insight. They just got bought out recently. You've got Unilog here. You've got some big commerce. But again, you don't see Infor on this list. In this case, you don't see some of the other things like maybe Microsoft or some of the others. But this gives you a feel that Magento, as a solution, is one of the leaders according to the industry analysts. Well, that being said, how did we get involved with it? How did Grey Wolf get involved with this, and what's the history of Magento, and where does it play? So if you don't know this, this is more just a history lesson is all it is. And you can read this as well, but I want to talk through some of this. I do want to talk about how the 1990s, if you didn't know this, actually Amazon was founded in the 1990s, and they're the big gorilla on the box. So this, the 20,000-pound gorilla out there. That's why I put them on this slide. We've actually been involved in the e-commerce arena since the 2000s. We actually offered a solution called Storm, which was sales to order and relationship management. And we saw that that whole world was just too early for us to get into it. So we've actually partnered with a company called CPC, Computer Pundits. You may have heard of them before. They're now called Channel Software. They got bought out and got renamed. And we actually had a tight relationship with them through the 2000s. A little side note then is the first general release of Magento happened in 2008. So we're really talking about a 12-year life cycle of the product. eBay, you may not have known this, actually acquired the company and the product of Magento in 2011. And then what ended up happening was 4 years later, a venture capitalist purchased it back out and bought it from eBay. It was not a good solution for eBay to pick up Magento. And that was actually the first release of Magento 2.x. So it was release 1.x was from 2008 to 2015. I'm sorry, 2008 to 2015. And if you're not aware of this, you absolutely, if you're looking at Magento or have Magento, you've got to be on version 2.x. Because 1.x to 2.x doesn't play nice. When we start talking about the extensions and start talking about the modules, that doesn't play nice. And the reason we know this is we actually integrated SX Enterprise with Magento in version 1.9 back in 2016. That's how we got involved with this. We had a customer come up, use our APIs, and got involved with the version 1.9. Version 1.9 is an older version. So in 2016, we started with that. But with version 2.0, we saw that we needed to jump on it because the software does not upgrade. You can't write code for version 1.9 and have it migrate to version 2.x. So what we needed to do was to start that approach. In 2017, Grey Wolf then started offering an integration with 2.x because that was the architecture. If you're on version 1.9, you need to get off of it as soon as possible. Second of all, we saw we needed to host it. When we were working with versions with CPC, we ran into problems where what was happening is that on-premise there were different versions out there. By Grey Wolf hosting the version 2.x and using our APIs to integrate with it, we then saw that we were able to keep a consistent world with that. And we've got multiple customers now with the same code base, and we don't have to worry about what's going on with multiple versions out there. In 2018, we saw that Adobe acquired Magento. That was a big deal because obviously Adobe has some cash behind it, and Adobe has been focusing on the Magento Commerce Edition. They have still kept the code for the open source edition, but what we've seen is that now we're seeing more enhancements to the open source because they're enhancing it in the Commerce Edition. We then saw we needed to brand our software. And the reason why we needed to brand it was because we're taking Magento to the next level. That's the whole purpose of this webinar, is to talk about the idea of how do things work beyond what Magento can bring to it. And that's where we brand it at Altitude. So our solution is actually a wrapper around it. It's powered by Magento as opposed to just being Magento in and of itself. I know you've all seen this slide and probably been reading it while we were on mute, but what you'll see is the difference between open source and the Magento Commerce. Everything is the same on the checkboxes down to site search, and then we see some differences. One of the biggest differences is the B2B functionality. What we need to do on that B2B functionality is, instead of putting duplicate data in Magento and the ERP solution, we use a set of APIs to integrate those two, and that's really the right way to do this. Architecturally, what should be happening is that the data should be maintained in one place and one place only, and then integrate the two together. So the B2B functionality in Magento Commerce is really making Magento Commerce almost an ERP solution. And you can get from Page Builder and those kinds of things, you can get third-party extensions. We're going to talk about extensions and modules here in a minute. You can get those through third parties. All of the things that you're seeing on these checkboxes that are in Magento Commerce are you're available, in our case, from Altitude, or if you were to do it yourself, you could get it with third-party solutions. So while Magento Commerce is a more robust solution than open source, if you take open source to the next level, it takes Magento to the next level for what you need. And probably more important is exactly this slide right here. Now, this slide was done in 2019. I don't think it's changed in the last 6 months. But what you're seeing here is that if you are going to run Magento Commerce and you have one order, $1 of gross sales revenue, you're going to spend $22,000 per year for the Magento 2 Commerce Edition. If you have the Commerce Cloud Edition, you're going to spend $40,000 for that one order. And this is not atypical to the other solutions that are out there, like a Unilog or like a Insight. You're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars up front for that solution. And what you're going to hear is that Altitude is charged substantially cheaper, and I'm going to get into that at the end. But you can see here where, yeah, Adobe has a solution, but it's tens of thousands of dollars per year. Is that what you really want to do? So let's make the assumption at this point that we all buy into that Magento is a great product, and that's really what you want to use as the architecture. If that's the case, how do we go beyond that? And what's the difference between extensions and modules? Well, if you look at the basic screen, this is actually a screenshot, and I'll show you some of the screenshots from the admin tool. This is actually the admin tool in Magento, and you've got two things here. You've got extensions and you've got modules. If you were to click on the extensions, and I could do this offline, I just wanted to save time as the reason why I'm not showing this as a demo, but if you were to click on the extension, it would take you to the Magento Marketplace. If you click on modules, that's going to take you to the module manager, which shows the modules that have been applied to your specific instance of Magento. Both of them are exactly the same. The only difference is an extension are Magento modules through the Magento Marketplace. And the Magento Marketplace is like the Apple Store. They've been endorsed by Magento. There are a lot of companies out there that have only modules that haven't been endorsed. Well, one of those happens to be Grey Wolf. And we have a series of modules that we've done to integrate. I'm going to show you a lot of this. We have modules that we've done to integrate with your ERP, whether it be P21, CSD, or SX. And those things like for orders, showing orders, being able to see balances, be able to place orders, have pricing and availability, have all those kinds of integration pieces we've written as a module as opposed to an extension. And the reason why is because we're offering this as a hosted solution, and people can't buy our modules and put it on premise. They can only get it through our solution. That's the difference between an extensions and modules. Now, if you look at this, though, this comes back to where Magento is a great solution for a foundation. And if we go to, this is, if you look at, I want to show this screenshot that I did real quick here, almost 3,800 Magento 2, I did this specifically on this search, only Magento 2 of extensions. These can be for accounting and finance, marketing, sales, shipping, and fulfillment. If you go into this Magento Marketplace, and if I bring that over here so you can actually see it, you're going to see two things. You're going to see extensions and themes. The extensions are what we were looking at a minute ago. Themes are the, for those of you that are technical, it's kind of like the CSS, the style sheets that are available. You can buy themes, and when you purchase these themes, they are typically going to include things like a loyalty program or a newsletter or some of the things that you saw in the Commerce Edition. You can purchase all of these things online, and if you look at all the extensions and we look at some of the pricing of this, some of these are free. Some of them, you don't really see much that get above a couple $100 until you get to the really extensive ones. So, for example, I know that there's a company out there that's going to be a Tug that's offering an integration with SX. They're doing this in combination. I looked at their pricing. They're charging $5,000 for their extension. Actually, it's a module. For their module to extend it so that SX can talk to Magento. It's a $5,000 one. That's not on, you're not going to find that here. That's why I didn't use the word extensions, because you're not going to find that here with those guys. So the pricing here is typically affordable or it's free. Now, that's what gives you the opportunity to extend a lot of things. But let me show you a couple, and I'm going to go into a couple that we're now adding within Altitude. We're adding this because they are free. So if I go to, I have one website out here called sx.greywolf.com, and for those of you on P21, I have one P21 as well, but I have to pick one of the two. One of the things we've added was this idea of being able to have a pop-up, a searching capability. So if I start typing in YEL, and as I type, it automatically changes, and you can see over here, see all, it's going down to 29, and if I go back a little bit, you'll see it goes to 41. It's doing this autofill. This is actually an extension that's available for free. So if you go with the open source edition, you can actually have some searching capabilities available as an extension. This is also along the same lines, those of you that may be running Easy Ask. Easy Ask actually has an extension for the Magento version 1.9. Theoretically, they should be writing one for also version 2.x. I don't know where they're going with that, but Easy Ask is an option. But there's a lot of other searching engines similar to Easy Ask that you can have that's a subscription base that does a whole bunch of searching capabilities, or you can use some free ones. Those are the kinds of things that you can get from a perspective of add-ons. Another one that's available as an add-on, I'm going to go into another demo site here. If I go look up a product, and I'm going to do a quick search directly to it, of GYR, and the reason why I want to jump to that is I've got some items out here. There's a third-party tool out there that's free for product attachments, and I can then go and see product attachments that are assigned to a product. Those are the kinds of extensions that you can get outside of the Grey Wolf world. Now, if we jump back over to the PowerPoint, good, there we go. And now what I want to talk about is what are some of your options, and I want to talk about altitude as well. What are your options today? Well, you can just not have an e-commerce presence. That's an option. Second is you could develop it and build it in-house yourself. That's an option. You could start with Magento and install it yourself. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I will tell you, though, that we do have our APIs available in a full version that you could use those APIs and write your own extensions and do all the things that we've done already and have it in-house yourself. So that is an option. By the way, our price of our APIs is, for those of you that are P21, because you don't have a progress up front, it's going to be $500 per year. And if you want the full version, it's going to be $1,500 a year. For those of you on SX, because we have a progress piece, we have a progress royalty, you're going to be spending $1,000 for the altitude approach, and you're going to spend an additional $2,000. It's going to be $2,000 if you go with your own and develop it in-house. Another option is you could go with your ERP provider. You could use Infor or Epicor and use things like Rhythm or ECC as the solution you go with. Oh, by the way, Epicor's ECC is based on Magento, and they've done some of the same things. I would challenge you on the pricing on that. Another option is to go with Adobe or a Magento provider. You could actually go with, like I said, Magento Commerce, or you could go with someone that's actually just a Magento provider, doesn't focus on trying to do the integration. They're offering it as a reseller for Adobe. There will be some of those at Tug. I would challenge you to look at the pricing on that. Or you could look at our solution. Well, that being said, let's jump into altitude. And because I ran out of that time, I want to respect your time. We're coming close. I want to jump to the end, and I'm going to show you some demo pieces. The first thing I want to show you is we've done a quick reference card to show some of the differences. We've got a quick little VIPIT that shows about the uploader. But more importantly, what I want to show you is what is our pricing. And if you jump into this, and this is all available to you, what we charge is a $400 activation fee, and then we charge based on the number of transactions, a transaction being orders, a transaction being payments, those kinds of things. And you're going to see that you could get involved in this. If you're a P21 customer, you could get involved in this for a $500 for the APIs, two $400 activation fees, and it takes you to $1,300, and then $100 a month. This is a heck of a lot cheaper than tens of thousands of dollars. This allows you to get started on it and actually create an environment that you can now develop the world you want as opposed to the world that the software developers. It's called consumption economics. That we're not trying to gouge you up front and throw it over the wall and say, you need to pay for this all up front, and if it doesn't get accepted, shame on you. Instead, what we're doing is we're talking about having it consumption-based. Now, what do you get for that? Well, this was I'm going to get out of that. That was something that we were working on from a generic. But if I look at what we've got, and by the way, look and feel on this is not pretty. This is a standard Magento world. You would go and get a theme and apply that to this. But what you can do within this world is look at items, and you're going to see some of these items are zeros, but all the pricing and available for those products that have been set up to have pricing and availability linked over to it, you're going to see pricing, and this pricing and availability is either coming from SX, CSD, or P21. How do we get to that? Let me show you now the back end of what you're looking at from an admin perspective. And this will also allow me to show you some of the things that we've done as well as integrations with it. One of the things that we've got is under altitude, we've got settings and an uploader. And under the uploader, what we've got there is all you have to do is work with a file, and let me bring up the file real quick here so that you can see. You work with an Excel spreadsheet, and you populate this spreadsheet with information. You can have categories, you can have products, and we've got pop-ups here that tell you how to fill it out. This allows you to mass update as opposed to going one at a time. If you've got tens of thousands of items, you don't want to have to populate all of this to have the product information in Magento setup. Again, if we go back to the design criteria, that they need to have it where all we're trying to tie is that the SKU in Magento is tied to the product number in the ERP, whether it be P21 or SX. Once you have that link, pricing and availability is available. So you can see you're really not populating the spreadsheet with a whole bunch of information. You're not populating it with pricing and availability. All you're doing is populating with the basic information that you want to have. Get over to the here. And then you upload that information. Same thing goes for images. If you drag and drop images across, it will update the information. So real quick, I've already populated some of this. If we go to products real quickly here, you're going to see that there's no products here with 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go over to the uploader. I'm going to take that spreadsheet we were just looking at. I'm going to drag and drop it so it chooses the file and say upload. That will take and create that product for me. Now, if I go back over to the products, you're now going to see the basic product with a basic image. There's nothing in there. If we go back to altitude, go to the uploader, and I drag and drop a zip file of multiple images and say upload. And now go back over to the catalog products. You'll now see that the image has changed. Oh, didn't take it the way I wanted it to. But if I scroll down here and look at images and videos, oh, I know there it is. It now puts images and videos into this item. So what you're seeing here is that you can now mass update that information quickly. If we look at the settings on this, this is where we set things like max recall, and I'll show you that real quick. Shipping methods. This is an add-on that we've done that says, okay, we're going to have, based on the ship to location, based upon your warehouse locations, and based upon which shipping method you use, whether it be UPS, FedEx, whatever, we're going to have it assign the associated warehouse to the order, and we're going to create multiple orders so that it's shipping from the cheapest warehouse that's possible for that ship to location. We have shipping upcharge information so that we can say, okay, are we going to process and how are we going to charge some additional upcharges associated with it? And then what I have is some connectivity information that says, okay, which company am I going to work against? And based on that company information, I can then say, what's the default customer number? What warehouse do they have? What's going to be am I going to allow addresses to be coming back and forth? Do I have some warehouses list for availability? I have shopping cart information. Do I bring it in as a standard order? Do I bring it in as a quote? These are all things that I can set as the default. And then when I go over to working in the actual solution itself, it ends up being something that actually integrates directly with the ERP solution. One of the cooler things that we've created is this thing called a payment. If I go in and view my account here, and I need to log in, one of the things that we've got with our APIs that you're not necessarily going to get with some of the Infor stuff is because, especially with the CSD, is we are able to allow, I got to get to a non-secure part there, we are able to allow customers to make payments through ACH. Marjam happens to be an SX customer. I'm going to go and change because their demo data is a little bit old because we're still doing some testing in this world. I don't want to be in the production world. And I can actually look at the invoices and I can check on it and say pay, and it'll actually go through an ACH process. I can go look at the invoice to say what does the invoice look like before I actually pay it. Now I can say pay the invoice, or I can go back and say, as I'm looking at this, come on, I can say, show me the proof of delivery. This is where we've integrated with Max Recall, where we're actually going to show the actual image of what was delivered and the picking slip. So these are all kinds of things that are available to you with the Altitude approach. I'm short on time, so I don't want to waste any more time getting to the takeaways. First, the assumption, Magento is the platform of choice. I'm making the assumption that Magento is what you want. What I'm talking about now is the differences between our solution and other Magento solutions. One, it's an open source that's affordable and a solid platform. Has 3,700 extensions that are available just on the Magento marketplaces alone. But Altitude starts at $100 a month. You won't find that with any other Magento solution, whether it be ECC or a third party. We enable data primarily maintained in one database. That's through the API integration that we've got. And the uploader minimizes maintenance so that you don't have a whole bunch of effort that manpower has to keep your website current. Bottom line, Altitude is probably the most affordable distribution solution that you'll see out there based on the assumption that Magento is the platform of choice. I apologize for flying through some of this. I really apologize for the technical difficulties we had. But if you have any questions, please feel free. If you want a further demo, be glad to do that for you. But at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions. I don't see anybody raising their hand, and I don't see any chat at this point. But if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and I can unmute you, or we can actually go to chat, and I'll read the question out loud. Okay. Those of you that are going to be at TUG in 2 weeks, hopefully we'll see you there. Otherwise, those of you on P21, hope you guys have a great day. And again, thank you very much for taking your time, and hopefully this was a worthwhile, quick little webinar. Have a great day. Thanks.